Games are expensive. These days, dropping full price on a new release feels like a gamble. Sometimes you get a masterpiece. Sometimes you get a game you'll forget in a week. But these PS5 games, they're worth every dollar. Let's get into it.
Metro Exodus. This game is strictly a first-person shooter, but it feels completely different from something like Call of Duty because it is so slow and heavy and immersive that you forget you are sitting in a chair. You play as Artyom again, and instead of being stuck in the subway tunnels, you are finally outside on a giant steam train traveling across Russia after a nuclear war. The whole game is a road trip where you stop at these huge semi-open maps to look for fuel and water and supplies for your crew. The reason it is so addictive is the atmosphere, because the developers nailed the feeling of being a scavenger in a dead world. You have a backpack that you can pull out at any time to craft medkits or air filters, and it happens in real time, so you can't just pause the game while a mutant is running at you. You have to pump up your pneumatic air rifle with a hand pump to keep the pressure high, and you have to wipe your gas mask visor when it gets covered in blood or mud. If your mask gets cracked during a fight, you have to put a piece of duct tape over the hole just to breathe. It is those tiny, stressful details that make you feel like you are actually there.
No matter what those fanatics think.
The exploration is the hook, because every single building you see in the distance has something cool inside. You might find a new stock for your AK or a better scope, or just a diary that tells a sad story about the people who lived there before the bombs fell. The weapons are amazing because they look like they are made out of scrap metal and bicycle parts. You have to clean them at workbenches because if they get too dirty from the sand or the swamp water, they will actually jam in the middle of a gunfight, and you will be clicking the trigger in panic while a bandit shoots at you. The train acts like your mobile base, and it changes as the game goes on. You start with just the engine, and by the end you have a kitchen car and a passenger car and a workshop car. You spend time between missions just hanging out with your wife and your friends on the train, listening to them play guitar, smoke cigarettes, and talk about their dreams. It makes you care so much about these people that you want to explore every corner of the map just to find better gear to protect them. It is a terrifying and beautiful game that sucks you in with its world and doesn't let go until the credits roll. Mafia Definitive Edition. One of the most slept on cinematic bangers out there. If you're into games that feel like an old school mob movie, this thing absolutely nails the vibe. So this is a full remake of the original Mafia game from 2002, but they didn't just slap on some better textures. Nah, they rebuilt it completely. New voice acting, updated cutscenes, improved gameplay, and visuals that legit look like a high budget crime drama. It's got that real sit back and watch the story unfold energy, but you're in control the whole way. You play as Tommy Angelo, a regular cab driver who gets pulled into the mob life during the 1930s. And it's not just crime for fun stuff, it's serious, character-driven storytelling. You see his whole rise through the ranks of the Salieri crime family, all the moral conflicts, the betrayals, the regrets. It's got heart, man. Tommy's not some over-the-top gangster, he's a regular guy who gets in deep and starts questioning if the life is worth it. Now, what really makes Mafia Definitive Edition feel cinematic is how it's directed. Every cutscene is sharp, great camera angles, super clean lighting, and voice acting that actually feels like it's from a real mob flick. The facial animations are solid too, which makes the emotional moments hit way harder. You'll feel it when Tommy starts to crack, or when things go south with the people he thought he could trust. The City of Lost Heaven also helps set the mood. It's not full of side missions or collectibles like modern open-world games, but it looks amazing. Rain-soaked streets, old cars, glowing neon signs, the whole city feels alive in a cinematic way. You're not supposed to treat it like a playground, you're just living in it, moving from mission to mission like scenes in a film. So yeah, Mafia Definitive Edition isn't about open world chaos or RPG leveling systems, it's about story, mood, characters, and that classic mob movie feel. If you like your games tight, emotional, and cinematic as hell, this one's a must. It's short, but every chapter hits. Alan Wake 2. Now this one's pure atmosphere. Like if you're into story-heavy games that feel like you're watching a slow burn mystery thriller, this one delivers big time. It's not loud or packed with non-stop action, it's more about the vibe, the tension, and the way it pulls you into this creepy, twisted world. You switch between two characters, Alan Wake's the writer trapped in this weird nightmare world, and Saga Anderson, an FBI agent trying to solve a case that starts getting real strange. Their stories are connected, but they're seeing it from totally different angles, and that back and forth, flipping between them makes the story feel deeper and more layered, almost like watching two episodes of the same show play out side by side. Now what makes this game feel super cinematic is the way it's shot and edited. There are full-on live-action scenes mixed with gameplay, like actual filmed footage blended right into the game. Sometimes you're walking down a hallway and it turns into this trippy, dreamlike moment with flashing lights and live actors on screen. It's wild, but it works. It never feels like a gimmick. It adds to the whole "is this real or not" feeling that the game leans into. Visually, the game is dark, but in a clean way. Forest, cabins, creepy small towns. Everything has that horror movie lighting. Flashlights, shadows, weird flickers of light in the distance. It all feels carefully set up, like scenes from a movie. It's moody, quiet, and full of tension. Sometimes you're just slowly walking, nothing's happening, but you feel the pressure building the whole time. Gameplay-wise, it's simple but tight. You've got that flashlight and gun combo again, shining light on enemies to make them vulnerable, then taking them down. But it's not about waves of enemies or crazy fights. Most of the time, you're exploring, reading clues, solving small puzzles, and just soaking in the world. It's more about the journey and the weird stuff you uncover. The writing is solid too. Alan's sections especially feel like you're inside his head, literally sometimes. He's a writer, so his thoughts are part of the story, and the game leans into that hard. Pages of a story appear before things happen. You're walking through events he's already written, or maybe he's writing them as they happen. It's trippy but cool. Only downside, it's not for everyone. The pacing can feel slow if you're not into that heavy story, and it's definitely weird at times. But if you're into games that feel like you're watching a mystery series with horror vibes, this thing nails it.
Merge on the facility now.
Spider-Man 2. From the moment it starts, it throws you right into the action. The city looks amazing. The lighting, the reflections, the way everything moves, it all feels super clean and polished. And the way the camera follows Spidey when you're swinging through New York, yeah, it's smooth, real smooth. Every little swing, flip, and trick feels like you're watching a scene straight out of a Marvel movie. This time around, you get to play as both Peter Parker and Miles Morales, which adds some nice variety. They each have their own powers, and switching between them is super quick. 1 second, you're Peter webbing up bad guys, the next you're Miles zipping through the air with electricity powers. It keeps the action fresh and looks cool every time. The fights are fast, flashy, and fun to watch. Lots of big animations, clean camera angles, and when you're pulling off combos, it really does feel like you're in a superhero film. Boss fights too, like the ones with Venom or Sandman, are huge and full of crazy effects. The game loves to give you those epic cinematic moments where everything slows down just enough to let you enjoy how badass it looks. But here's the thing, the game feels short. Not like super short, but for a big superhero game like this, it ends sooner than you'd expect. The story hits hard and fast, and before you know it, the credits are rolling. Also, while the open world stuff is fun at first, it starts to feel a little copy-paste after a while. You're chasing drones, stopping crimes, collecting things, all the usual stuff. And some of it feels a bit too familiar if you played the last two games. Still, the overall package is strong. Visually, it's one of the best looking games out there. The acting, the music, the set pieces, everything comes together to give you that big cinematic experience. Yeah, it could have been longer and some side content feels like filler, but the main story and core gameplay, super tight. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. So Indiana Jones and the Great Circle is hands down one of the most cinematic games to drop recently. Like, if you ever wanted to be Indiana Jones, not just play as him, this is it. Full movie vibes from start to finish. You're dropped straight into this classic indie style adventure, ancient temples, lost artifacts, Nazis of course, and crazy set pieces that feel like they're ripped straight out of a summer blockbuster. The game's mostly first person, which sounds weird for a story heavy title, but honestly, it works perfectly. It makes everything feel super immersive, like you're right there, dodging traps and throwing punches with your own hands. One of the biggest strengths of this game is how smooth everything flows. The cutscenes blend right into gameplay with almost no loading or breaks. You'll be having a quiet chat with a character, then suddenly, boom! You're in a chase scene hanging from a Nazi blimp over Vatican. Visually, the game looks great, especially the environments. Vatican City, the Himalayas, tombs, jungles, everything is packed with little details. You can tell they really wanted this to feel like the classic films. Even the smaller character moments, like Indy just talking with someone, feel cinematic thanks to the solid facial animation and voice work. Oh, and by the way, Troy Baker does the voice for Indy, and he nailed it. Like, scary close to Harrison Ford. The Plague Tale Requiem. Now we're getting into A Plague Tale Requiem, and man, this one is pure cinematic emotion. Like, it doesn't just look good, it hits hard too. It's one of those games where the story and the visuals work together so smoothly, it feels like you're watching and playing through a full-on medieval drama. You're back playing as Amicia, still trying to protect her little brother Hugo, who's got this weird power tied to a plague of rats. Yeah, still rats. And yeah, still brutal, but this time the story is darker, deeper, and way more intense. You're not just running from soldiers or trying to escape a city, now you're crossing entire regions, trying to find a cure, and watching these two kids basically lose their childhood along the way. Visually, this game is stunning, like, for real, some of the best graphics out there. Whether it's a bright field of flowers, a foggy ruined village, or a nighttime escape with torches lighting the path, it always looks amazing. The camera pulls back at just the right moments to show you big open views, or zooms in tight when it wants you to feel the tension. And it's all seamless. Cutscenes and gameplay blend right into each other, no awkward jumps or loading screens. It just flows. The cinematic feel really comes through in the way the story is told. The acting is strong, especially from Amicia. She's angry, scared, desperate. All of it feels real. And Hugo, he's still a kid, but you can tell he's changing. The things he sees, the choices he's forced into, it's rough. The story doesn't hold back, and it doesn't treat these characters like superheroes. They're just trying to survive. Gameplay is still kind of stealth-focused with puzzles and light combat, but it's stepped up from the first game. Amicia is tougher now. She can fight back more, use more tools, and take on enemies head-on if she has to. But even then, it never turns into an action game. You still feel small. The danger always feels close. And when the rats show up, bro, it's insane. Like rivers of them. 1,000. They pour through cracks, break through walls, flood buildings. It looks incredible and terrifying. A Plague Tale Requiem is basically a story-driven, emotional, dark medieval film, but you're in control. It's got heart, it's got incredible visuals, and it knows how to keep things grounded. It's sad, intense, and totally worth it if you want a game that feels like something real and heavy.
I feel my mind going. I know. Think of your brother. We have to carry on. Oh no.
Infamous Second Son. This one dropped in 2014, early in the PS4's life, and it was one of those first games that really showed people, yo, this is what next gen can look like now. It was super slick, super pretty, and yeah, even today it still holds up pretty well. We play as Delson Rowe, this young guy from Seattle who ends up getting powers after a freak accident. He starts off kind of cocky, kind of a troublemaker, but as the story goes on, he grows up a bit, especially once he realizes what kind of weight those powers carry. What's cool though is that you get to choose what kind of person Delson becomes. Good guy helping people, or total menace, doing whatever you want. That karma system wasn't super deep, but it worked well for keeping things interesting. Now the big draw here is definitely the superpowers, and not just one power. Delsin can absorb other conduits' powers, so you get a whole set of different abilities to play with. Smoke, neon, video, yeah, like digital powers, and concrete. Each one feels different. Like with smoke, you're dashing through air vents, but with neon, you're zooming around the city like a glowing blur. It made combat and traversal really fun because you could keep switching things up and never get bored. Speaking of the city, Seattle was a great pick for a setting. It's rainy, gritty, kind of moody, perfect for this kind of game. You can climb buildings, glide across rooftops, and blast enemies in the streets. There's always something to do, whether it's side missions, enemy bases, or just cruising around with powers. It's not a supermassive open world, but it's dense enough to keep you moving. That's fast, flashy, and satisfying, whether you're throwing smoke bombs, sniping people with neon beams, or ground pounding with concrete. It all feels clean. It's not super deep like some RPG systems, but it gets the job done and feels good to play. Plus the visuals, especially the particle effects, were a big deal back then and still look cool now. Resident Evil 4 Remake. I mean, yeah, at this point, Resident Evil 4 is basically one of those untouchable games. Like, whenever people talk about the greatest action games ever made, RE4 always comes up somehow. So when Resident Evil 4 got announced, I think a lot of people were excited, but also nervous, because this is not some random cult classic. This is the game. This thing influenced like an entire generation of third-person shooters. And honestly, man, somehow the remake actually lived up to it. What I love about it is that it immediately reminds you why the original game was so addictive in the first place. The pacing is unbelievable. Seriously, this game constantly feels like it's evolving every hour. Village sections turn into survival horror turns into giant action sequences, then suddenly you're solving puzzles in creepy castles, then escaping from horrifying underground labs, then fighting giant mutated monsters. The game never sits still long enough for you to get bored, and that's really why RE4 becomes one of those accidentally played for 7 hours games. Every chapter ends with some new weapon, enemy, environment, mechanic, or set piece that makes you want to keep pushing forward. The combat's still ridiculously satisfying too. Even after all these years, there's just something about the way Resident Evil 4 handles crowd control that feels amazing. Shooting enemies in the knees, roundhouse kicking groups, parrying attacks with a knife now, blasting Donatos apart with the shotgun. Every encounter feels chaotic, but controlled at the same time. And the atmosphere is incredible in this version. The original game always had creepy vibes, but the remake pushes the horror side harder. The village especially feels genuinely oppressive now. Everything's muddy, dark, wet, filthy, miserable. The sound design is fantastic too, because you're constantly hearing distant chanting, footsteps, weird enemy noises, chainsaws revving somewhere nearby. It keeps your brain tense even during quieter moments. And then there's the castle section, which somehow still completely rules all these years later. I know some people prefer the village stuff, but man, I love how weird RE4 gets once you fully enter the gothic castle nonsense. Cultists screaming at you, giant armored enemies, catapults firing at you while you're running across walls, absurd trap rooms, lava rooms because video games. The game just keeps escalating into crazier territory, and somehow it all still works. The merchant is still one of the most addictive parts too, honestly. Every time you find treasure or enough money for an upgrade, your brain immediately starts planning builds. Should I fully upgrade the shotgun? Save for the magnum? Upgrade reload speed? Buy the rocket launcher? That progression loop is dangerous because the game constantly feeds you little rewards that make you want to continue just a bit longer. And that's something RE4 absolutely masters. Momentum. You're always close to another cool unlock, another boss fight, another weapon, another memorable area. There's never this huge wall of downtime where the game loses energy. I also think Leon specifically carries the whole thing so well because he has this perfect balance between serious and completely ridiculous. Dude's surrounded by horrifying parasites and nightmare monsters and still somehow throws out dumb action movie one-liners like he's in some 2000s action film. And honestly, RE4 wouldn't feel right any other way.
Sorry, you're not my type.
The bosses still hit hard too. Del Lago, El Gigante, Verdugo, Krauser, Salazar. Every major fight feels memorable because they all test you differently. Some are straight survival horror panic, others feel more action heavy, others become almost like weird puzzle encounters. Again, the game constantly changes things up. And honestly, replayability is where RE4 becomes completely dangerous. Once you finish it once, suddenly you want to do New Game Plus, then professional difficulty, then speed runs, then challenge runs, then unlocking infinite weapons, then chasing higher rankings. The game is basically built to be replayed over and over because the combat system is just that satisfying.
Why? You can't save her. You can't save anyone.
Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. Let's talk about Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 because this game is doing something really special and very, very different from every other big budget role-playing game out there. The core idea here is historical realism, and I mean serious realism. This isn't just a fantasy world with castles and swords. The developers, Warhorse Studios, built this game with the help of historians to recreate the Kingdom of Bohemia in the year 1403, which is now the modern-day Czech Republic. When you walk into the major city of Kuttenberg, which was a huge silver mining hub, you are seeing a digital version of what that place looked and felt like 600 years ago. It's a level of historical detail that's almost obsessive, right down to the clothing people wear, the kinds of food they eat, and the actual political turmoil of King Wenceslas IV fighting his own brother Sigismund. You are in the middle of a real civil war that actually happened. You continue to play as Henry, who started as a peasant blacksmith's son in the first game. This time, he is no longer a total nobody. He's on a quest for revenge that gets him swept up into a much larger conflict of nobles and monarchs. The story is a deep dive into the lives of real historical figures, which makes the whole narrative feel grounded, heavy, and very human. Henry still doesn't have any magical powers. He's just a guy who needs to eat, sleep, keep his clothes from being covered in blood and mud because people will judge you for your poor appearance, and figure out how to survive. Now let's talk about the unique gameplay mechanic that sets this game apart, the combat system. It is famously difficult and very rewarding. It is not just about button mashing. It is a directional sword fighting system where you have to think like a real swordsman. You aim your attacks and blocks in 4 different directions: up, down, left, and right, and you have to match your opponent's moves. If an enemy swings down from the top right, you have to aim your block up and right in the fraction of a second you have. It takes practice with a trainer to get good, and you will get your butt kicked a lot by simple bandits at first, which actually makes Henry's progression feel earned. They've also added things like early primitive firearms, like a slow-loading musket, and crossbows, which bring a new layer to battles. Even though those guns are inaccurate and take forever to reload, it just adds to that feeling of being in a genuinely rough, developing time period.
Ha! Now I've got you.
The role-playing elements are also much deeper this time. Your dialogue options aren't just based on your raw speech score. They are influenced by 3 separate traits like oratory, charisma, and intimidation, plus a new layer called appearance, which means if you show up to talk to a duke wearing raggedy, blood-stained clothes, you will not be taken seriously, and your dialogue choices will be limited or even fail entirely. This whole system means you are constantly making choices, from stealing to being a virtuous knight, and every single action affects how the people of Bohemia see you. The developers really put an incredible amount of work into making the game world react to you, and it's that uncompromising commitment to historical detail and challenging realism that makes Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 one of the most important new role-playing games coming out. Final Fantasy XVI is really interesting because it's one of those games where you can actively feel the divide between different generations of Final Fantasy fans while you're playing it. Like, this is a series that's been around for, almost 40 years at this point, everybody has their "this was my Final Fantasy game." Some people grew up with the SNES era stuff, some people came in with PS1 games, some people started with MMOs, some people started with FF15, some people literally started here with FF16. So every new game comes with millions of people carrying completely different expectations into it. And I think sometimes online discourse gets weird about that stuff, because people act like there's one objectively correct version of Final Fantasy, when honestly this series has reinvented itself like a million times already. Even the so-called Golden Age games from Final Fantasy VI through Final Fantasy X all feel different from each other mechanically and tonally. Naturally, FF16 was never gonna satisfy literally everybody. Like, if somebody grew up loving the party management, turn-based systems, elemental strategies, status effects, world maps, and slower RPG pacing from older FF games, I completely understand why FF16 might not fully hit for them. The game leans way harder into character action combat and cinematic spectacle, but at the same time, if you're a newer or younger Final Fantasy fan and this game completely grabbed you, that's valid too, honestly. I'd never want to take away from somebody discovering Final Fantasy through this game, because there's a lot here to genuinely love. And honestly, man, once FF16 gets its hooks into you, it really gets its hooks into you. The game has this super heavy, almost HBO fantasy drama vibe for the first half that makes it really easy to keep playing for hours. Political betrayals, giant kingdoms collapsing, revenge arcs, massive wars, people constantly scheming against each other. It feels way darker and more grounded than a lot of previous Final Fantasy games initially. And I was honestly surprised how much I got sucked into the world building. Then eventually, the game starts escalating harder and harder until it becomes absolute insanity. Because the Eikon battles in this game are genuinely some of the craziest spectacle moments Square Enix has ever done. Like, full stop. There are fights in this game where you're basically playing through a giant anime movie with skyscraper-sized gods beating the hell out of each other while entire cities are exploding around them. And the thing is, they keep escalating. Every time you think the game has peaked visually, it somehow tops itself again later. The Titan fight especially, man, that whole sequence just keeps going and somehow never loses momentum. Same thing with Bahamut. Those moments are the reasons so many people walked away from FF16 completely obsessed with it, despite some of the criticism around the RPG systems. The spectacle is just unbelievable sometimes. But honestly, I think what makes the game addictive moment to moment is actually the combat, because once you fully unlock more Eikon abilities and start experimenting with builds, the combat becomes super satisfying in that, okay, wait, let me try one more encounter type of way. Juggling enemies in the air, chaining abilities together, dodging perfectly, swapping powers mid-combo, it starts feeling closer to something like Devil May Cry 5 than traditional Final Fantasy at times, which makes sense considering the combat designer worked on that too. And the game smartly keeps feeding you new powers constantly. Every major Eikon unlock changes your toolkit enough that combat doesn't really stagnate for a long time. You start building favorite combinations, figuring out cooldown rotations, experimenting with stagger damage setups. Even if the RPG mechanics are lighter than older games, there's still enough customization there to keep combat engaging for dozens of hours. I also think Clive is a huge reason people got attached to the game. He's honestly one of the more grounded Final Fantasy protagonists in a while. Dude's exhausted half the time, carrying trauma constantly, trying to hold himself together while the world completely falls apart around him. And because the voice acting and performance capture are so strong, the quieter scenes hit surprisingly hard too. Now, obviously, yeah, the game isn't perfect. Some side quests absolutely kill momentum at points. Some RPG systems feel simplified compared to older entries. There are definitely people who wanted more traditional Final Fantasy mechanics and didn't get them. I totally get that perspective. But man, when FF16 is firing on all cylinders, it really fires. The soundtrack explodes, giant icons start fighting in the background, Clive zipping around the battlefield throwing absurd attacks everywhere, particle effects are filling the screen, bosses are transforming every 5 minutes. The game becomes ridiculously hard to put down because you constantly want to see what insane thing it's going to throw at you next. Ghost of Tsushima is basically a samurai movie that you get to control, and it is easily the most beautiful game ever made, because every single frame looks like a painting you would hang on your wall. You will find yourself stopping your horse constantly just to look at the sunset, or watch the red leaves falling from the trees, or stare at a field of white flowers blowing in the wind. The graphics are so good that they actually make you feel relaxed just by looking at them. The coolest feature is that there is no ugly mini-map on the screen to clutter up the view. If you want to know where to go, you literally just swipe the touchpad on the controller and the wind blows the grass and the trees in the direction of your objective. It is such a genius idea that makes you look at the world instead of looking at a tiny arrow in the corner. The combat is incredibly satisfying because it makes you feel like a master swordsman who's always in control. You have this mechanic called a standoff where you walk up to a group of enemies and challenge the leader to a duel. The camera zooms in and you have to hold the triangle button and wait for him to attack. You have to have nerves of steel because if you release the button too early, you lose almost all your health. But if you time it perfectly, you slice him in one hit and then chain kill two other guys in slow motion. It makes you feel so powerful. You also learn different fighting stances that you have to switch between in the middle of a fight, like using water stance to break shields or wind stance to kick spear guys in the face. It flows like water, and once you get good at parrying attacks, you feel untouchable. The story is actually really deep because it is all about the struggle between following the rules and doing what is necessary to save your home. You play as Jin Sakai, and you have to decide if you want to fight with honor like a samurai or use stealth and poison like the ghost. The game does not judge you, but the characters around you react to how brutal you are becoming. You start using smoke bombs and assassinations, and your uncle gets so disappointed in you, and it is genuinely sad to watch their relationship fall apart. But the most addictive part is just exploring the island because there are so many secrets that are actually fun to find. You will see a golden bird flying in the sky, and if you follow it, it leads to a hidden hot spring where you can rest and increase your health. Or you might see a cute little fox jumping around, and if you follow the fox, it leads to a shrine and then lets you pet it afterwards. Petting the fox is honestly the highlight of the game. It is the perfect mix of zen exploration and violent sword fighting, and you will want to clear every single fog patch on the map before you finish the story. Uncharted 4 And if you have been playing the Uncharted series since the starting days, you must know how big of an influence these amazing games had as a whole on the newer PlayStation games, especially Uncharted 2. And here we are going to talk about the best of all, well, at least for me, which is Uncharted 4. This game still plays and looks like it could be a next-gen title. The fluid animations, the set pieces, the pacing, everything was perfect. It's the last big chapter for Nathan Drake, and you can feel that from the start. He's not the young, wild guy he used to be. He's older now, trying to live a quiet life with Elena, but deep down, you know he misses the thrill. So when his brother Sam shows up asking for help, Nate jumps back in. One more adventure. And honestly, it's his best one. The game takes you all over the world, from muddy jungles to crazy pirate ruins, and every place looks insane. And you know that jeep chase in Madagascar is still one of the coolest moments in any game. And the whole pirate treasure hunt thing, it just keeps getting bigger and crazier as the game goes on. And for the gameplay, everything's smoother here. Gunfights feel clean, you can go loud or stealthy, and it's actually fun either way. The climbing feels more natural than before. And then there's the grappling hook, which might sound like a small thing, but it adds so much to how you move. You're swinging across gaps, climbing faster, pulling off cool stunts. It's just fun to control. The exploration is a big deal too. It's not a fully open world, but the levels are wide enough that you can take your time, look around, and find hidden paths or optional stuff. And the visuals, crazy. This was a PS4 game, but it still holds up with modern stuff. The water, the lighting, the little details in buildings. Naughty Dog didn't mess around. So yeah, Uncharted 4 isn't just one of the best PlayStation exclusives, it's one of the best games, period. Great story, fun gameplay, beautiful visuals, and an ending that actually feels like an ending. If you've never played it, you're missing out. Red Dead Redemption 2. Yeah, not a PlayStation exclusive, but let's be honest, this thing owned the PS4 generation, straight up. It was the only Rockstar game made specifically for PS4, and they went all out with it. Like, this isn't just one of the best games on PS4, it's one of the best games ever made, for me and for a lot of people. Now, of course, the basic stuff, you play as Arthur Morgan, part of the Vanderlyn gang, living that outlaw life while the world around you starts moving on. It's not just a cowboy story, it's a slow burn about loyalty, regret, and watching your way of life fade away. Arthur starts out kind of rough, but by the end, man, you feel everything he goes through. His whole arc is just real. By the time those credits roll, you're not just playing a game anymore, you're saying goodbye to someone. The writing's top-notch, no doubt. Every member of the gang feels like a real person. Dutch, Hosea, John, Sadie, Micah, they all have depth. The campfire convos, the little side interactions, the way things change over time, it's all so detailed. Rockstar didn't just write a story, they built a whole living world that reacts to what's happened. And speaking of the world, this game's world building is insane. You've got forests, swamps, snowy mountains, dusty deserts, fancy towns, broken down farms. It all feels alive. Animals roam around, weather changes everything. NPCs have full schedules and react to your actions. You can ride for hours and still find stuff you've never seen. It's probably the most believable open world ever made.
Hi there, mister. Hey there. Hello. Hey there, mister.
Gameplay-wise, yeah, it's slower than most modern stuff, but that's the point. It's not about rushing through missions, it wants you to live in the moment. Take care of your horse, hunt for food, clean your guns, shave your beard. It's all little stuff, but it adds up and makes the world feel real. You're not just blasting through a checklist, you're living Arthur's life. And visually, even now in 2025, Red Dead 2 still looks better than most new games. The lighting, the animations, the way the mud clings to your boots or how snow reacts to your footsteps, it's all next level. The amount of detail is just unreal.
What matters?
Do as you're goddamn told.
It is us or him.
Returnal. Let's dive into Returnal. This one's a wild ride from start to finish, and if you're into games that make you rethink your life choices, then oh boy does this one deliver. So, you're Salim, an astronaut crash landing on this eerie, ever-changing alien planet called Atropos. And right off the bat, you're thrown into this time loop where dying isn't just a minor setback, it's like the whole game is built around this mechanic. You're going to die, a lot. And each time you do, you wake up right back at the start of your journey, but with new insights and a slightly different landscape to explore. It's kind of like Groundhog Day, but with more space monsters and less Bill Murray. The first thing that hits you about Returnal is its atmosphere. It's haunting and beautiful in a way that sticks with you. The alien world is just as deadly as it is mesmerizing, with biomes that shift and change, creating a sort of labyrinthine feeling where you're never quite sure what's around the corner. The PS5's hardware really makes this thing pop, with its quick load times and the DualSense controller making those alien sculptures and gunshots feel shockingly immersive. Now, the combat, oh man, it's frenetic and challenging, like they took every tough as nails roguelike you've ever played, threw in some bullet hell elements, and then wrapped it all up in a sci-fi setting. You're dodging, weaving, and shooting with a huge arsenal of weapons that you can mix and match to fit your playstyle. The weapons are cool, each with its own unique abilities, and they drop randomly, which keeps you on your toes. The story's a trip too. It's not just mindless action, there's a deep, existential element to it. As you progress, you unravel more about Salim's backstory and the planet's dark secrets. It's all about isolation, trauma, and the struggle to break free from an endless cycle. And the way it unfolds is both compelling and eerie. The lore of Atropos is twisted and intriguing, and it'll keep you guessing as you piece together the narrative through cryptic messages, haunting visions, and those wonderfully weird alien artifacts. But let's be real, Returnal isn't for everyone. The roguelike nature means you're constantly starting over, and that can be brutal. If you're not into that kind of grind, this game can feel more punishing than rewarding. And even if you are into it, the difficulty spikes can be a bit much sometimes. But if you're up for a challenge and don't mind a bit of repetition, the sense of accomplishment from finally making progress is pretty satisfying. So yeah, Returnal is intense, beautiful, and a bit maddening. It's one of those games where every victory feels hard-earned and every defeat makes you want to try again. If you're looking for something that'll push your limits and keep you coming back for more, give it a shot. Just be prepared to lose track of time and maybe your sanity as you dive into its twisted alien world. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth grabs you with its size and keeps you there with small, constant dopamine hits. The world feels huge in a way that actually matters. You ride through deserts, wander ruined cities, explore forests, and then find a tiny village with a side quest that hooks you for an hour. The overworld lets you go off the main road and actually find stuff worth your time. Everything you stumble on has a little reward: gear, a memory, a tiny scene with the crew, and that one more detour itch never goes away. Combat is this perfect messy mix of thinking and button smashing that feels modern but still smart. You can flow into fast attacks and dodges, but the ATB style system sits underneath and rewards planning. Use a limit break, switch character mid-fight, throw a spell, then finish with a huge cinematic. The game hands you options and then asks you to make combos look cool. Boss fights push you to learn patterns while also letting you feel powerful when you pull off the right rotation. Upgrades, materia, and new weapons keep you tinkering with builds, so you always want to test one more setup. Character stuff is huge. The party is loud and human and messy. The way the game drops little character beats while you're just wandering or doing a side mission makes the whole cast feel alive. You do a tiny mini game with someone, you get a cutscene with another, you laugh, you get stirred, and suddenly you care about random NPCs. Those small emotional moments add up and make you want to keep playing because you want to see what the group does next.
Nothing to it.
That said, some people complain there are too many minigames and filler quests. I get it, and I agree, it can break the story pace a lot. One minute you're right in the middle of something huge, and the next minute you're doing a weird fetch quest or a batting cage challenge that feels like window dressing. It interrupts the momentum, and if you're chasing the main plot, it can feel annoying. Even so, it's not a deal breaker. The game is still great. The filler gives you ways to relax, make cash, or find a cool weapon, and honestly, some of the side nonsense is fun in a dumb way. If the pacing bothers you, there's an easy fix. Do 2 runs. One playthrough focused on main story beats and pushing the plot forward, and another playthrough for the side content, minigames, and everything else you skipped. That way you get the best of both worlds, a tight story run and a separate run where you can poke at every corner of the world. Visually, the game is slick. Close-ups, facial animation, weather, and lighting, all of it looks like it belongs in a big budget show. The team used the hardware well, so most of the time everything feels smooth and alive. There are plenty of flashy cinematic beats that make combat and story moments feel huge, but the non-stop visual polish is what makes wandering around actually fun instead of boring. Rebirth is addictive because it stacks tiny rewards on top of big ones. You get a story chunk that matters, then you get a cool weapon, then a new skill, then a side scene that makes you smile, and you keep chasing those hits. If you like games that mix big, sweeping moments with tiny personal ones and keep giving you reasons to poke everything on the map, this one will eat your free time without shame.
All I want is one thing: to keep the others safe.
It's upon us. The reunion. When worlds merge.
Guardians of the Galaxy 2021. I really think Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy is one of the most pleasantly surprising single-player games in the last couple years, because I remember a lot of people completely writing this thing off before even touching it, mostly because it got unfairly dragged into the whole live service superhero game mess happening around that time. People saw Marvel, saw Square Enix attached, and immediately assumed this was going to be another grindy loot game or something. And then you actually play it and realize, nah, this is basically just a really solid old-school single-player adventure game with a ridiculous amount of heart. And honestly, the biggest reason it becomes so addictive is the characters. Like, the game absolutely nails that feeling of being stuck on a spaceship with a bunch of dysfunctional idiots you slowly start loving more and more over time. The dialogue never stops. Ever. These characters are constantly talking during exploration, combat, walking sections, random side paths, elevators, ship conversations, and somehow it rarely gets annoying because the writing feels surprisingly natural. That's the dangerous thing with this game. You keep playing because you genuinely want to hear the next conversation. Like, you'll find yourself slowing down during exploration sections just to hear Rocket finish roasting somebody or Drax say the most unintentionally insane thing imaginable. The banter becomes part of the gameplay loop, honestly.
Head to nowhere.
And the game is way bigger than I expected too. People kind of forget this because it's not open world, but the adventure itself feels huge. Different planets, giant cities, weird alien environments, massive set pieces, ship sequences, creature encounters. The game constantly changes scenery enough that it keeps pulling you forward. Every few hours there's some completely different environment or gameplay gimmick thrown in. I also think the pacing is really strong because it balances quieter moments with total chaos really well. One second you're walking through the Milano talking to the crew about random nonsense, then suddenly there's this gigantic combat encounter with explosions everywhere and licensed music blasting in the background. And honestly man, the soundtrack does so much for this game. The licensed 80s music stuff could have felt gimmicky, but it genuinely works. When those songs kick in during fights or story moments, the whole game suddenly gets this huge energy boost, especially the huddle mechanic during combat, where Star-Lord gives the team some dumb motivational speech while music starts blasting and everybody gets buffed. It should be corny, it is corny honestly, but somehow it completely works because the game fully commits to the vibe. Combat's interesting too because at first it honestly feels kinda simple. You're mainly controlling Star-Lord directly while issuing commands to the team, but the further you get, the more abilities unlock, and fights become way more chaotic in a fun way. You start juggling cooldowns, combining team attacks, freezing enemies with Groot while Rocket nukes groups, launching enemies into the air with Drax, all while flying around shooting stuff. Visually too, the game just keeps throwing cool stuff at you. Giant alien creatures, weird cosmic environments, neon cities, destroyed worlds, huge sci-fi structures. There's always some new visual spectacle around the corner, which makes it really easy to keep saying, alright, one more chapter. God of War Ragnarok. You're back as Kratos, but this time things feel even more personal. He's not just out here smashing gods anymore, but dude has a boy now and someone really trying to do better. And his son Atreus has grown up. He's not a little kid anymore. He's starting to push back, ask questions, and I think annoy Kratos a bit more. But honestly, the combat and the bosses are the real deal here because, wow, it's even better than the 2018 game. You still got the Leviathan Axe and the Blades of Chaos, but now they've added more depth, more abilities, more enemy types. The fights feel heavy and brutal, but also smooth and clean, and it's not just button mashing. You gotta dodge, parry, mix up your weapons, and use your gear smart. Plus, you can upgrade everything and tweak your playstyle however you want. And man, the boss fights, absolutely wild. You'll fight giant beasts, angry gods, powerful warriors, and each one feels different. The Thor fight early in the game alone feels like something that would have been a final boss in most games, and that's just the start. The world design is also next level. You get to explore all 9 realms this time, each one looking and feeling totally different, from snowy forests to lava-filled caves to magical floating lands. The art direction is gorgeous. It's not open world, but the levels are huge and packed with secrets, puzzles, and side quests. And speaking of side quests, they're actually worth doing. They're full of good writing, character moments, and sometimes even full-on story arcs. And of course, the presentation is insane. The music, the voice acting, the camera work, it's all top shelf. The whole game is done in that one-take camera style, like the last one, and it makes everything feel seamless. No loading screens, no breaks, just smooth, non-stop storytelling and action. Black Myth Wukong. Alright, let's talk about Black Myth Wukong. This one's got everyone buzzing, and for a good reason. I mean, it came out of nowhere, and suddenly everyone's like, hold up, is this the Dark Souls of Journey to the West? And honestly, yeah, kinda, but with a lot more monkey business. You're stepping into the fur-covered shoes of Sun Wukong, the Monkey King himself. This dude is legendary in Chinese folklore with more tricks up his sleeve than a stage magician at a kid's party. And the game leans hard into that. From the early gameplay we've seen, you're doing all kinds of wild stuff, transforming into insects to sneak past fast enemies, whipping that magical staff around like you're trying to clean up a brawl, and just generally making everyone's life hell in a really flashy, over-the-top way. Graphically, this game is a chef's kiss. We're talking some of the most stunning visuals I've seen, the fur on Wukong's arm, unreal detail, the environments, out of this world. It's got this vibe like you're stepping straight into a mythical painting, but with more action and honestly, a lot more gore. But it's not just about looking pretty, the combat looks fierce. It's like a perfect blend of speed and precision, where you're reading enemy patterns, dodging and countering at the last second, and then slapping them back with some insane moves that only a Monkey King could pull off. And let's not even get started on the bosses. From what's been teased, these aren't your run-of-the-mill, hit him 3 times in the glowing weak spot kind of bosses. No, these are the types that make you rethink your life choices. They're big, brutal, and they don't mess around. One minute you're fighting some giant wolf demon, and the next you're squaring up against an army of soldiers who are not impressed with your monkey antics. It feels like a challenge where every fight is gonna have you on the edge of your seat, white-knuckling your controller. Last of Us Part 1. Straight up, one of the most important games PlayStation's ever put out. It dropped in 2013, and even now in 2025, people still talk about it like it just came out, and for good reason. This game hit like a truck back then, and it still hits just as hard today. Now the basic stuff, you play as Joel the dad, this rough, quiet guy who's lost everything when the world goes to hell. Then you meet Ellie, a teenage girl who might be the key to saving what's left of humanity. Joel gets stuck with the job of smuggling her across the country, and from there, man, the journey they go on is wild. Not just the places they travel through, but the way their bond slowly builds over time. They go from total strangers to something that feels like family.
You know, I've never been this close. It's the outside.
This game is all about story and emotion. Yeah, there's action and infected creatures and all that, but the real magic is in the quiet stuff. The little talks they have while walking, the broken down cities they explore. And the writing, still some of the best in any game, period. It never feels fake or overdone. It's raw, simple, and real. Joel's tough but broken. Ellie's funny, curious, and way tougher than she looks. You feel every choice, every loss, every moment between them.
So don't tell me that I would be safer with someone else, because the truth is I would just be more scared.
Gameplay-wise, it's a survival action mix. You sneak around, craft stuff, use every bullet carefully. The combat is brutal, not flashy, not fun in the usual sense, just desperate and messy, which fits the world perfectly. You're not a superhero here, you're just trying to survive. The environments are unforgettable. Cities overgrown with plants, flooded buildings, snowy forests. Every place tells a story just through how it looks. You're not just running through levels. You're living in this broken world for a while and it stays with you.
You make every shot count.
I got this.
The Witcher 3. The Witcher 3 is honestly one of those rare games that just pulls you in and doesn't let go. The world is massive, but not in a way that feels overwhelming. It's more like wherever you go, there's a new story, a hidden detail, or something that makes you feel like you're in a living, breathing world. If we talk about the combat, then it's pretty cool, with a mix of swordplay, magic, and potions, though it can feel a little repetitive if you're just slashing away. But what stands out for me is how every decision you make actually feels like it matters.
Go away, or I'll kill you.
You think you're just choosing between a couple of dialogue options, and then 5 hours later you're dealing with the consequences in ways you didn't expect. It's got that kind of depth. Honestly, there's a lot to talk about as every gaming feature such as environment, characters, story, open world, and much more are perfect in Witcher 3. Sure, for some players the initial hours are boring, but I just don't know how people can ever hate this game after finishing it. Witcher has been one of the most iconic titles of all time. A lot of RPGs have taken inspiration from it. There's even a TV series starring Henry Cavill, and don't even get me started on the books. If you guys ask me, then I just want to say that if you are looking for some deep open world RPG where every feature is perfect, then Witcher 3 will be a great choice. If you are getting bored in the first few hours, then wait for it, because the game definitely gets better. Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, I forgot how good these games are at just making movement feel satisfying too. Even running around collecting bolts scratches some weird part of your brain. Dashing around arenas, jumping between rails, flying through those rift tears mid-combat, the whole game just moves really well, so even downtime never really feels boring. Also, man, the PS5 showcase stuff could have been really gimmicky, but some of those dimensional jumps still look nuts. There's moments where entire environments are changing around you instantly while explosions are happening, and somehow the game never loses momentum. I remember the first time playing it thinking, alright, yeah, this is the kind of flashy nonsense people wanted from new hardware. The weapon upgrading is dangerous because you always convince yourself you're gonna stop after one more level up. Then you unlock another alt-fire mode or another upgrade branch, and now you're clearing optional arenas for 2 more hours just because your stupid little monkey brain wants raritanium crystals. And the game is just super likable, honestly. That matters more than people realize. Ratchet games have this big, colorful Pixar energy adventure vibe where hanging around the world itself is fun. Rivet was cool immediately, the music's great, the humor mostly lands, and visually the whole thing looks ridiculous half the time. There's so much stuff flying around on screen during combat, and somehow it still feels clean. Also, the amount of particle effects in this game is actually stupid, like genuinely stupid. Every gunfight looks like somebody detonated a fireworks factory. Bolts flying everywhere, enemies exploding, giant laser beams crossing the screen, little gadgets running around attacking things for you. It's sensory overload in the best way. And that's kind of why the game becomes addictive. It never really exhausts you. Some huge AAA games start feeling like work after a while, with giant maps and crafting menus and checklist nonsense. Rift Apart just keeps throwing cool toys and fun levels at you for like 15 straight hours. Sekiro, Shadows Die Twice. This game is probably the hardest game on the entire list, but it is also the most satisfying video game you will ever play in your life, once you learn how to do it. It is made by the same people who made Dark Souls, but you have to forget everything you learned in those games, because if you try to roll around on the floor, you will die instantly. Sekiro is all about standing your ground and deflecting the enemy's sword swings with your own sword. It creates this incredible rhythm of metal clanging against metal that feels like a deadly dance. You have to tap the block button at the exact split second the enemy hits you, and when you get good at it, you feel like an actual ninja master. The reason it is so addictive is because of the difficulty curve. At the beginning of the game, you will get destroyed by basic enemies and you will feel like giving up. But then there is this magical moment that every player talks about where the combat just clicks in your brain. Suddenly you stop panicking and you start reading the enemy movements. You realize that you're not trapped in a room with a boss, the boss is trapped in a room with you. The rush of adrenaline you get when you finally beat a boss that has been killing you for 3 hours is a feeling that no other game can give you. You will literally be shaking with excitement because you know you won just because of your own skill. You play as a shinobi with a prosthetic arm that has all these cool gadgets in it. You can shoot fire or throw shurikens or use a spring-loaded axe to break shields. You also have a grappling hook that lets you zip around the rooftops like Spider-Man, which makes the exploration feel super fast and vertical. The levels are beautiful versions of feudal Japan with burning castles and snowy mountains and giant snakes. Since you are a ninja, you can sneak around and stealth kill enemies if you want to thin out the herd before the real fight starts. The coolest mechanic is right in the title, because if you die, you can actually resurrect yourself right on the spot. This lets you play mind games with the enemies because they will turn their backs on your dead body and think they won, and then you stand up and stab them in the back. It gives you a second chance to fix your mistakes. The sword fighting is so sharp and precise that once you beat the game, you will immediately want to start a new game plus just to bully the early bosses that gave you trouble the first time. It demands your full attention and refuses to hold your hand, and that is exactly why you cannot stop playing.